and welcome to the newest episode of the Keen Minds podcast, where we're covering NBC's The Blacklist. We're in Season 5, Episode 5, which was Ilyas Surkov. I'm Jen, aka Takata Cycle.
And I am Tessa.
And we loved this episode. We've been spazzing in the background here for the last 10 minutes about how much we loved it.
I'm in parallel heaven. I mean, not even to the end of the show, and I have over 15 parallels, which is, pretty impressive even for the Blacklist.
Yeah, they went all out on this one. There were so many little things that just jump out at you, from tones that the actors and actresses use to the way the type of wordings to, I mean, it was all so subtle and so beautiful that you're just sitting there going, thanks guys, well done. Well done this time.
I remember thinking they're giving us basically a big fat zero canon facts, and then you get this episode that is like, there used to be these things that you just like saw nothing, and then you put a pair of glasses and suddenly you saw the figures that were there. That's exactly what it is. They give you these things and you're like, oh, this is great for the ride. And then they give you the pair of glasses and you're like, oh my God, look at all the stuff that they've been giving you, and you don't even know it until you get to the right way of looking at things. You got to get the perspective.
You're looking at it wrong. You're looking at it like a cop.
Yeah. Yeah, this was it's funny because you're seeing to me themes that are being from season 1, season 2, season 3, and now they taken them, they look slightly different, and you see both character development, you see parallels, and it's just awesome. I'm like a kid.
Oh,
I'm so excited.
I love to see scenes paralleled multiple seasons later where you see the growth highlighted. That's one of my
you have
things.
one in your mind that is excellent.
I have
the one about Red and Liz that is just, yeah, that's a great one. You want to go discussing what first?
Let's jump into Wrestler first then.
Okay. I had, well, first we have one of the best car chases ever with Wrestler.
I swear, that man and his driving, it always makes me so happy to see Wrestler driving.
But it was much more fun because usually it's Liz to his side and she or Samara, and they're like, oh, whatever, right? You're good. And this was Aram that was basically climbing into the seat of the car, and Liz in the back is like, yeah, well, whatever, over there, turn. It was great. I loved that.
Oh, it was utterly fantastic, and I'm so proud of Rest to be able to tune Aram out, because I would have been like, shut up, let me drive.
I think he's probably got, imagine if when he was with Audrey he was driving like that, he probably got enough of that.
The real reason they split, Wrestler's driving.
Well, one of the most interesting things that we had in this episode with Wrestler to me was that we got a beautiful parallel between him and Agent Calhoun. Is that what you pronounce it? Calhoun? The woman.
I don't actually remember her name. I know who you're talking about, but
I think it's Calhoun. Callum, yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, I think she was going by Colby or something like that, and then that was not her real name. Her real name is Callum. And I thought it was beautiful parallel because they've been chasing this shadow, this ghost for 6 years. It became their entire life. She left to have a family. She's recruited into this now very confusing undercover operation. And meanwhile, she doesn't realize that the devil she's being hunting is the devil that she works with.
Which is funny because that phrasing that he used there, my brain went to Liz with the statement that she made at the end of season 4, where she said, the devil's my father. And because it's very specific phrasing there. And so I guess that's probably drawing a couple of different parallels between, is what you just said, Wrestler and her, and then also the wording with Liz. And so it all comes back to Red.
Yeah, but also because at the end, you always have to ask yourself, was really Cox doing something wrong, or was he really looking for patriotic interest? I mean, just because um, this guy didn't think it was, didn't mean that that was not what his higher ups thought he should be doing. He should be bombing this, or there were diplomatic resolutions to a conflict without affecting relationships. And so you're getting into this very gray area.
Well, we've talked about it before when we were talking about, Scotty and Halcyon and all of that, in which, your selective morality. In which, what is it that gives them permission to do this? Is it the badge? Is it the okay by the government? Is it doing the quote-unquote morally right thing? Who gets to decide what the morally right thing is? We've discussed that with Tom, with Halcyon, with, doing bad things for good reasons. And that's just looking at that theme all over again. Who gets to decide, who gets to pull this trigger and decide what's right and what's wrong and how far we're able to go. And where do we go in the end to get our reputations back?
Was it Cox the one that was wrong, or was it what is the name? I keep forgetting his name.
Something.
Osterman was his real name. So because you can't really determine, Osterman at one point said that's enough, this is your agenda, but as you said, where do you start the right from the wrong? Once you're not in the law, everything is, and they're in the covert unit, they're in the clandestine service.
Exactly, and I'm not sure the show was actually giving us a definite answer on that. It's more presenting the question of who gets to make this call.
I don't think you can have an answer. I mean, when you're playing with an enemy that doesn't play by the rules, you can't play by the rules, because then you're being an idiot. That's like you're playing with one leg and the other guy has two legs and like 5 guns.
It's bringing a knife to the gunfight.
Mm-hmm. A toy knife.
Yeah.
So I love that about Wrestler, that there he is looking at another mirror in which he sees an agent doing this. And I think that at the end, especially if all these theories, including mine, that Red is conducting an undercover mission come to fruition, then Wrestler would be saying, well, you know what, I was defending what I thought was right, and it turned out that what was right was Red. I think that that's where we're going. I think we're going to a point where you start doubting if what you thought was good is bad, and what you thought was bad was good.
Well, we've already seen that so many times, especially with Wrestler, because we had the whole bit with Hitchin and him trusting her back in season 3, and it nearly got Liz killed. I mean, and so it's a pretty fair assumption that when it nearly gets your leading lady killed, it's probably on the bad side, for the most part in this show. That's one of the few things,
But it was interesting to see that character development that we've seen in Wrestler this time. He's not so naive anymore. He's not the Boy Scout anymore saying, this is right, this is wrong. He's seeing what it is. I mean, he saw Bobby Jonica that also took a turn for the worse when he was hunting Reddington and became the enemy that he was chasing. So I think that this is all shaping up beautiful, because now you're getting, remember that I always been saying, they're laying a bunch of dangling ends and they're leaving them around. And at one point they start picking them up and they make this beautiful bouquet of dangling ends that now are a cohesive whole, and is going to change everything that you think about the show entirely.
They're really good about picking them up just seasons later. And so, in bringing them back around.
So I like that very much. We saw a very different Wrestler this time than we were used to seeing. If we compare Wrestler in this episode with Wrestler in, let's say, the last time they were around in running around in Poland, in Warsaw, with the Monarch Douglas back. Yeah, that was a very different Wrestler. He was addicted. He was, not really getting things. Now this is seasoned. He's wiser. He is grayer. He can understand a lot more things that he did before. So that's what I got on Wrestler.
What about Cooper?
Oh boy, I love Cooper, and I think that Cooper is actually looking at a mirror in Cox, and asking himself how far he's going. Because I mean, remember, we've seen a lot of times that Cooper is an ambitious man. Even, such, don't that morality, when you're like, don't let your morality take down your upward climbing. He's And then suddenly he's now confronted with this FBI director. Whatever is going on, he's been playing cards with Panabaker. He's going up, and he's the head of the unit that has more arrests than all other units combined. So Cooper he's climbing high, and he's on a high tight line that he can fall off anytime, or he can keep climbing.
And I think he's in a very delicate position right now. I think that's one reason he's locking down like he is and trying to go at things with that I don't want to say a more moral sense, but he's getting more ruffled on people that are willing to bend the bindings these days. And
Yeah,
so
which,
the
which is
reactions
a
he
little
has had
self-serving.
well, I mean, he's trying to salvage what they have. I think overall, he is trying to make sure, trying to protect his team, protect where they're at, what they're doing,
and
and
him.
and to do that, that's the headspace he's gotten into.
And I think there may be a couple of things going on that we will hear in the future. But I'm liking this Cooper. I didn't necessarily agree when, she was saying that Cox was, the one doing the wrong thing. I don't have enough information to know whether Cox was doing the right thing, whether Osterman was doing the right thing. I don't know. I mean, I don't know, when you're, again, depending on who your enemy is and how dirty they play. You can't play cleaner than your enemy. So it all depends who's your enemy. And as we go into the parallels in this episode, because to me this episode was a parallel fest.
Oh, it was. So, should we move into Samara and Aram?
Interesting stuff. I like where they're going with them, because they had a choice to, be all dovey that was going to be boring, or at least give us a little bit of excitement, and I think they did.
I don't think the super lovey-dovey thing would really jive with Samar. I mean, I'm sure she can be very affectionate, and, she's obviously very loyal, but I don't think, just this, if it was all fluff all the time, it wouldn't make sense for her. It would tone her down way too much, and we'd lose what we love about Samar. And so I loved the idea.
Slightly injured.
Well,
that was
too.
A great line.
That was good too. And then, are you sure you're okay? Yes. I'm fine. But I loved that, one, Aram went out into the field. Aram never goes out into the field. He's out in the field because he's worried about her. That's cute. Little overbearing, but cute. But Aram has always been that way with Samar, really. I mean, he's the one that, as the bomb is ticking down, he's telling Wrestler he needs to apologize for, quote-unquote, calling her the B word, as a bomb's about to go off in their face. So he's always been a little bit extreme when it comes to Samar. And the fact that he had that full-fledged panic when she's being taken, gets into the driver's seat, and that look, and goes, I don't know how to drive. I want to hug Amir. I want to hug him. He's so brilliant with that.
I really was wondering last year, if once he took the rocket, whatever that thing was, to the architect, and basically blew him to smithereens. I was wondering if they were going to take him into, okay, this is going to be, Aram is going to decide that he's going to go back into the office and never leaving it again. Or would he actually go in the field and then eventually be a field agent?
Yeah, you've definitely seen the progression that he's had since season 1, where he was in therapy after killing the terrorist. And, you know, the progression up through now, in which he's going, I want to be field ready. Basically, this happened, I don't want to go hide in my hole. I want to make sure that never happens again. So
I need to know what to do.
you know, from a shipper's point of view, I've said multiple times that in Keen Squared, one of the many things that I like about them is that they can keep up with each other. That you don't have one of the couple that's just, you know, stay at home and, oh, something's happening. What's happening? I'm gonna get kidnapped every other episode. And they can keep up with each other. They are aware of what's, you know, they both understand the life that they're living. And I feel like Aram is moving towards that. While they both understand where they're at, obviously, because they both work for the same task force, Aram has always been, he's not field ready. And that's just a step that I do like that they're taking. They're toughening him up rather than trying to, I don't want to say soften Samar, because that doesn't give the right, but tone her down, I guess, is the best way. I really like the direction
Girly
they're going.
her.
Yeah, and it's, don't change my girl. I like her that way.
I think is an excellent choice they made with Aram, and it's going to get him a lot farther, especially because consider that in the task force they are, not even being in the office means that they're not going to have somebody putting a gun to their heads.
I was going to say, people break into into the post office. It's happened. They should have gotten him field ready the moment that happened, but they didn't, and
I think that he needed to get to a point where he understood. I mean, Aram was very much not in a black and white like wrestler, not in the right thing and the wrong thing, and the book and the not by the book. Because Aram has always been like, I do this because it's the right thing, and you know, I find my way to cover my behind, but it doesn't mean that I'm not going to do whatever I think is right to do. Mm-hmm. But he was always in the safer thing, and peril was something that he did not understood on a physical sense.
Well, it's like the talk that they had, I think it was last season, where
I'm
they're
not like you.
Well, they're talking about the fact that she's out in the field getting shot at, and he's behind the computer. Yes, he gets them out alive. He does a lot for them, but he doesn't typically have a gun to his head.
Yeah. So I like that development, and I find that it's very interesting that they're going that way. And I'll tell you why. Because there is another parallel in there of an agent. We getting Agent Callum says that she left to start a family, didn't go very well. So I'm thinking maybe the person she was with, and I'm remembering Emma saying that she lost her relationship, and Mira ended up, there was no father, so I guess that whatever relationship she had,
we don't know if there was a father or not. We know she
had
her
it was
kids.
Never mentioned. Yeah, she had a picture of the 2 kids. She never had a picture of anybody else, so we don't know. You know, she had a partner, but whatever it is, it wasn't there, and nobody says, "Oh my God, the poor guy." Nobody mentions a guy or a gal that was, you know, Mira's partner or spouse. So I'm thinking that's another one. And now you get Agent Callum, and we had wrestler that lost Audrey because of the focus on the job. So we're creating a lot of parallels in which if Aram doesn't take this route, he's going to be left behind, because in this, to survive in this world, you need to be a badass,
able to keep
smart badass,
able to keep up. Yes, exactly. I 100% agree with you on that. And I love that they're going that direction. And I think that's what's going to make them work.
Exactly. And it's one of the reasons why Tom and Liz have been able to work it out, because Tom can survive in that world. When you are in Red's world, you can't be you gotta be a tough.
You can't be the damsel in distress. There cannot be any damsels in distress here in this relationship.
You gotta keep your head. You gotta be smart. You gotta be tough, and you gotta be ready for violence when violence is called for.
If you get kidnapped, you better be able to fight your way out, because while someone may come to rescue you, you better be getting out on your own, because that's just the way it works in this world. Mm-hmm. Well, do you want to move into Red and then do the Keens last?
Yes, let's move into Red. Oh, I think we have to talk about, before talking about Red, we gotta talk about Hawkins because she was amazing in this episode.
That look, the second time she said, if you were just a little more attractive, I would birth you a litter right here. And he just looks over at her like with that, because he's busy laughing at it, but kind of gives her the side eye of, did you really just say that? And she makes poor Dembe so uncomfortable in that last scene. Poor sweetie. He's just
he's like, I'm going to be filing for sexual harassment here.
She's so funny. I love her.
And the allergies and just like, oh my God, look at this. And then she comes like next week. This is for 4 days. And Dom's like twice as much.
Oh, she's brilliant. I love her to death. And her reaction to Liz and just everything. She's just fantastic.
It makes Red do all these exasperated looks that are just delightful. Because Spader just nails them. It's like, yeah.
Every time.
They're great. So that compound of them, Dembe, and her, oh my God, it was so much fun. And then we got a dog. And do you realize that this is actually the 6th dog that we've had in the series? I got a list here, and I couldn't believe it.
Keeping a list of the dogs.
Well, just because, I mean, think about it. Every season we've had. First it was Hudson, who's a shapeshifter, and now apparently must be in an undercover assignment somewhere in there.
Spy baby, spy dog, spy parents.
Yeah.
It works out.
I'm sure that he found, he's on assignment undercover somewhere.
He's infiltrating St. Regis right now as we speak.
Or in a farm, making believe that he's a sheepdog and, gathering intelligence on the owner, something like that. I'm sure
he's not dead. The fandom refuses to believe Hudson is dead.
No, he's shape-shifting. He's a spy dog. So we had that. We had the dog, the Tuzik, the Russian ambassador's dog. We had the dog. Hold on. You're gonna have to. Okay, there you go. We got the dog taken from Frank Highland that became Carla's and Frank's dog. We have the dog whose picture's in the cabin when Carla is taken after she's rescued. There's that picture with a dog with a bandana. I imagine is the one she mentioned that her Jennifer had a dog in a house. So I imagine that's the dog. So there is a whole thing of dogs that have
Sam had that dog.
Oh, that is right. I'll add it.
I don't remember the dog's name, but it was Sam had a dog when he first got Liz.
Indeed. So that is 7 dogs that we've had with Coco. And amazing.
And did you get the little ones with Glenn?
Oh no.
We've had a lot of dogs.
Yeah. It's important to start taking notice of those things. So we've had so many of so many dogs, and it's funny because we have cats too. We have the cat in the flat. And we have cats in the Good Samaritan. No, the Deer Hunter. She had 3 cats. And in that song that was playing in season 3, get 2 cats in the yard. And so I think it's Cat or Katerina cat. I don't know. But there is something about cats and dogs. We're getting some imagery there between cats and dogs, lots of dogs, some cats. And at the same time, we're getting imagery with fire and water. And if you think about Red seems to be associated with water. And he almost died by fire. Well, Katerina seems to have a fiery temperament, and she almost died by water. So it's an interesting things that we're getting of elements, and cats and dogs in a way are like fire and water.
Potentially.
Jenny's speechless.
I have nothing to add to that, so.
I'm sure it's not my brilliance. She's probably thinking, okay, she lost it.
Silenced by the brilliance. So, something I found really interesting about Red this episode was just watching him with the doggy, it wasn't a doggy daycare, but the spa, doggy spa
Hmm.
bit. He's it goes back to the whole thing once again that they did with the spinoff, doing bad things for good reasons. He does good things for bad reasons and bad things for good reasons. It's also, he is just such a deep gray character with such complex motives to everything. Because if you're looking at, he runs his organization to keep Liz safe, and now to keep her task force running. Like, that's the only reason he's doing it, is for Liz, because we saw how he reacted in Cape May when he thought Liz was dead. He didn't care. He was throwing everything away. And so his entire reason for this criminal empire is Elizabeth Keene. And so that's a good thing, supposedly. And you've got the doggy spa, which is, tax deductible, and they're trying to, help animals in shelters, which most people would assume is a good thing. And yet he's running his money laundering through it now. And so he goes, it's just really interesting to see all of those layers of what he does intertwine with good and bad and everything in between. And it's just Red.
I know, it's what I love about Red. That's what is my favorite character. Probably getting to be the favorite character all around of everything that I've read and watched in my life, and because of that, because he's flawed, but at the same time he's fun. And when he does something bad, he always tries to balance by something good. Like, there's gonna be more cats, and I bet they're going to even do more shelters and more adoptions. And look at Coco. He got the evidence, and Coco now has lifetime of grooming in there for free.
And I love that Raymond Reddington is one of the few people that can, drop and he's done this before, where he's basically threatening the dog to get someone to do something. I mean, he's not going to actually hurt the dog, but the owner doesn't know that. And so he's threatening the dog, and yet goes and does something nice for it. It's just...
Well, he doesn't even need to threaten the dog anymore.
Oh, that was a threat hanging over the guy.
Oh, yeah, but it was meant to be illicit, to be interpreted as a threat without actually being a threat. So I'm like, gosh, like, we're just having here some fun, and I'm talking about things with free stone, and it's just, I'm not gonna hurt the dog. I'm not a monster. So I love those things about Red. It's also this episode to me was very interesting to see a very different Red, in the sense that he was looking for his own thing of finding a way to launder the money, a business to start laundering the money. But the second thing is that he seems genuinely upset that Nick is dead.
Yes, I do think he was. I mean, because like he made the comment to Liz, Nick saved his life. He brought Agnes into the world. I mean, and he told Dembe, back in season 4, he said, "You're not required to stay here. People think that I make them stay. They stay because I make them money. If they want to leave, they can leave." I think he genuinely was going, "Okay, Nick, best of luck to you," and was releasing Nick out into the world. And so, I mean, that's... I think that when he realized that something he did might have caused Nick to be killed, he felt like it was his responsibility to follow it up. I don't think that was... He would have argued that for a second. It's loyalty.
And he was very, very calm with Liz, and Liz was like, I want to believe you.
I think he understood why that was her go-to, but I do like the fact that she pulled back from that almost immediately. Like, after seeing his reaction, she realized that he did not put that hit out on Nick. Like, and I get why that was her immediate go-to, but after and we've talked about before that sometimes Liz just needs a little time to process. She gets very angry at first. She's very emotional, snaps at somebody. She did this with Tom when Tom went to his buddy to try to follow the feed back in season 4 when Agnes was missing, where she just bit his head off for doing it. And then the next morning was just like, I don't agree with it, but I can't blame you for trying to save our child. She takes time to process things, and then once she does, she's much more. Then you see that forgiving nature and that moving forward nature and understanding.
Well, and I think that the other thing that was to me interesting to see with Liz and Red was that what you were mentioning before about how you go back to season 1. You want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like the conversations they had in this episode reminded me very much of season 1, like where they were
Kevlar and Cyclone.
Yes, where they were talking about in season 1, where he's walking her through and saying, "You're thinking like a cop. Try thinking like a criminal. Do it this, you know." And in this episode, he stopped her and said, "No, think about it this way," and
think about what you know.
Yeah, and started walking her through it, not telling her the answers, but kind of directing her in the direction she needed to go, and gave her the gentle shove. And so he's teaching her. We've talked about it multiple times that Red is preparing her for what's ahead. He is training her. He is making sure that when push comes to shove, she's going to be able to come out on top, and she's going to be able to come out alive. And I love to see those teaching moments, and he's very good at it. But it's very season 1 in their early relationship, and yet you've got everything they've been through in between as well. It's like we were talking about early in the podcast. You see the parallels, and yet you also see the character growth with it as well.
Yeah, I find that this episode was, to me, one of the most eye-openers. It had so much canon in it, all in the form of parallels. And you have to find, like, in each thing, you have to find, like, the element of that parallel that is the canon, versus the fluff that makes you look into other directions, or that misdirection that gets you like.
No, Blacklist wouldn't use red herrings, would they?
No, it's a big red herring. They don't use it. They are a big red herring.
Yeah.
They have a lot of fish in that show.
It's like, if it's obvious, it's probably not the answer. That was always my joke. They've gone through several people running the Twitter feed, but I used to have a joke with the Twitter feed for a select amount of time. I said, if it looks like this is what they want you to think, it's probably going to be the direct opposite. And I've made some really, really close calls to canon before with that attitude towards the Twitter group. If the marketing team wants us to think this, it is the opposite. So-and-so's going to die, so-and-so's going to break up, is going to be the direct opposite. And a lot of times that's the way, because they like their misdirects. And the casual viewer is going to go with it because they're not picking it apart and putting it back together all the time.
Exactly. Now, Red had 2 great lines. Bring the dog, leave the poop. That is a direct note to The Godfather.
Is it? I haven't seen those movies in so long.
Bring the cannolis, leave the guns, bring the cannolis.
I haven't seen that in so long.
Yeah, well, that's a classic, and I love when they do nuts. And in fact, I was going over. I watched Mr. and Mrs. Smith not that long ago, and I picked up something that I had it just completely slipped my mind when I saw. Remember Red mentioning about having a marital therapist? Yes. Well, that's how Mr. and Mrs. Smith start. They're going to the marital therapist, and they're talking about all that. So it was fun. It was fun to see those nods.
There's a show that I don't think it's on anymore, but it's called Covert Affairs. It was about they were a group out of the CIA, and a couple of the lead characters were married. They were at certain levels, and worked with each other, but they were married, and they were constantly in therapy, and so like their therapist had to have such and such clearance, and like it was brilliant. And I'm just like, that would have been Red in therapy. Right there. That would have been Red in therapy.
I believe my theory is correct. That brings it to a whole other thing. And then he tells us something very interesting when he's talking to Hawkins. Look closer, what do you see? And it's always important in the Blacklist to look closer, because what you first see is rarely what it is.
It's those misdirects.
Mm-hmm.
Always the misdirects.
One thing that was interesting in all this, and this is now going into theory, is Red seems stunned that the suitcase would get Nick killed. So that may mean two things. I may have been completely wrong in my theory that that the suitcase was intended to get Liz and Red in a misdirect in a conflict that would get people killed, or that may be because Red has no idea that Dennison was supposed to tell somebody else that the suitcase was in play.
I didn't particularly pick up on that. I just thought he was surprised that Nick had it. I mean, and then was following that thread.
No, there
Because he
is a
didn't know he
line.
had it.
Yeah, he said, but why would it get him killed?
Oh, okay. I just missed that one then.
Yeah, it's a very small line, but it's a very significant line because that means he's either do not know that there is somebody else had been appraised of the situation that the suitcase is in play, or that it's not the bones, or it's so insane. So now we have to go into, in order to keep talking about Liz and Tom, we do have to talk about Pete. But let's start with Liz, or you want to start with Tom?
Well, let's go ahead and go into Liz. Because it kind of all flows in together.
Mm-hmm.
One thing a bit separate, and we've touched on it briefly already, was the parallel being drawn between the CIA agent and Liz and the conversation that Liz had with Emma. I mean, it was so close to identical. That, had a family, was starting a family, lost the family for the job. Lost the family because, for Emma, it was the job with Reddington. For this lady, it was the job with what she thought was the CIA. They were all chasing this grandiose, fantasy here that was big and it was bold and it was enticing, and they lost what truly mattered and didn't gain anything for it. I mean, like, they there was a lot of regret in there.
Yeah, and I find interesting that in this episode we're getting Mira, because that is another one. Mira was retired, and Diane Fowler got her out of retirement in order to be in this task force. So now you have another case of somebody that is going and not having and not being able to balance those two things. And in order to survive that, because even if you're able to have a balance, you still need to have a partner that can take that can survive in that world.
Well, that's what we've said about Tom again and again and again, is that if he had been what he was pretending to be in season 1, he would have been dead or gone by this point. He would have been killed by somebody, or he would have finally just gone, if you're not willing to get out of this life, I can't do this anymore, and left. They would have been divorced, and he would have run for the hills. But I mean, it takes someone like Tom to be able to keep up with Liz and be able to both want some semblance of normalcy and yet also be able to, when someone breaks into their house, know where the gun's hidden and be able to take the shot.
I also think that normal thing that there was, we were seeing that last episode, the deviant normal. I think that in a way that was a fantasy they both had for a little bit. I don't think that they're going to end up there. I think their normal is not going to be what people think of normal.
And that's the thing, is that I've been saying for a few seasons now, I guess for like 2 or 3 seasons now, that it's their version of normal that they're looking for, not the white picket fence, not the
maybe electrified picket fence.
Yeah, well, that would be okay.
Another thing that was interesting to me in here is that we are picking a lot of parallels with season 1 and 2 in terms of relationship between Liz and Tom. And I'm seeing this not from a shipper's perspective, because I'm not one. I'm just seeing it from where we were and where we've gone through to this point. And I think at this point, that normal that they're talking about, not their normal, it's also Tom was like, you like normal. And I think they're going to terms with the fact that normal may not be what normal is for other people.
Yeah.
And sure, they may go and eat burgers, but it's not going to be always that. And Tom is going to eventually find something to do that is going to be either running Alcyon or running or working with Red, or even being with a task force, as an asset.
Yeah, I've always wanted to see that. Like, it hasn't happened. They don't look like they're moving that direction, but that's always been kind of on my wish list, is to see him doing that. He has worked as an asset with them before, but I would love to see him regularly do that. So, something about Liz that I am pretty convinced of. I think she knows that Tom is hiding something right now. I am, say, like 97% sure.
Okay.
And so my go-to on this is the conversation at the funeral. They're sitting there and they're talking, and there's this inflection in both of their voices. There was a tone that Tom used to use in season 1 when he was fishing for information. He kind of pauses, his voice pitches up a little. It's this, I'm innocent. There's no reason for me to be asking this. I am genuinely concerned. Why don't you tell me everything, babe? And it's a tone that Ryan gets for it. And it's hilarious because I'm sitting there going, you want to broadcast it a little louder, honey? But Liz also has a tone when she's playing him in return. And that is what was happening right there at the funeral. I think that she was trying to convey very subtly and give him an opening to fess up to whatever it is. I mean, there's no way she knows what it is. I think she just knows because she knows her husband. She knows he's hiding something.
She knows her father.
Yeah. She knows he's hiding something. We saw the look when Tom invited Red to dinner. She sent them out together. We've seen all these little things, and I think that she's just convinced something is going on, which she would be right, obviously. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I'm giving you this moment to fess up on your own without me nagging, without me asking. Because, we've said about Liz so many times, Liz needs honesty. That is what she needs from people. She told Tom in season 2, she's like, if you can't be honest with me, this is done. We're not doing this. I'm not even going to be around you. Walk off.
Well, yeah.
Well, just that. I think that's what she was giving him that, and when he didn't, I think she was just really hurt by it. No, I don't think this is going to be the end of the Keens. I think that they've been through too much for one thing. I think that eventually she's going to be pissed, but I think she will eventually come to terms with what's going on. I think the fact that he's going to be in a whole lot of trouble may, make her a little more forgiving. So we saw that happen in season 3, where she was not happy with him, what he did, but she was more worried about losing him. It put things in perspective. When you are looking at losing someone, it puts anger in perspective, no matter how angry you are at somebody.
Well, and also because at this point, the two men in her life are doing exactly the same. Neither one is lying to her. A lie is an actual tell of untruth. They're exactly doing the same. They're omitting about the suitcase.
Delayed honesty.
Yeah, they're not. If she had asked them and they have told a lie, that's a whole different thing. Mm-hmm. But even Tom was trying to tell her, like, I don't think it's Reddington that got him killed.
He defended Red. Yeah, he's like, I don't think. Yeah, he could have pinned it on Red. The only thing. Yeah. Exactly what you just said. Sorry, the words are not coming.
But there is another thing that is even more interesting to me in that whole thing is that this is the second time that we're picking up exactly the same thing. Liz knowing something and not saying anything,
Mm-hmm.
suspecting something and not saying anything.
Well, I think part of that, like I said, is her wanting the person to come to her with the truth. I think that she does want that. And kind of like what Tom's doing right now with the suitcase, she probably is going to start investigating what's going on and getting answers. And that's what she did in season 1, was that, she pushed for answers.
Yeah.
She's done
The
that
fun,
with Reddington too.
the funny thing is that the one person that offered to tell her everything, that was Mr. Kaplan, said, stay in the car and I'll show you the truth. And she decided to get off the car and choose Reddington instead of the truth. So there is something about her that she will get the truth when she's ready for the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And until then, she will just ignore everything.
And I think that's one reason that Tom has not told her that he has this suitcase, or doesn't have this suitcase now. But he very clearly, in his whole monologue to Agnes, I loved that. That was so precious. So I'm sitting there going, who's he? I thought maybe Howard was going to be on a video chat or something. I was like, oh, sweet, maybe we're about to get Howard. And I'm sitting there listening to him like, he's talking funny. The way he's delivering this monologue is really odd to be talking to. It's because he was talking to a baby. And so he had that inflection in his voice like you get when you're talking to a little kid, but he's talking about Nick being murdered and how he was going to go about this. And hey,
and now you know
idea.
why Liz is so bizarre. Probably she got the same monologues.
So did Tom. He just doesn't remember them. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine Scotty having that conversation with baby Christopher? I mean, exactly. Howard? I mean, totally happened.
Can we now go into the fascinating Pete, maybe name Pete? Pete, maybe Pete? Whatever his name is.
Oh, I know. Did you? I would just like to comment on the very interesting scene of him buzzing his hair
with in an undershirt. Tom was black. His was white. Yeah, and a filthy hotel too, and the locks falling on the floor just the same.
And did he lose a couple fingers?
I couldn't quite tell. It moved so fast, I couldn't tell if he lost the fingers or he had a bandaged hands.
Well, he did have bandages on his hands, but the placing of the blood, he could have. You can't tell for certain, but it looks like he very well could have.
It's Leonard Cole, and Leonard Cole was a CIA agent that was approached to get it by Fitch to make the Cabal part, to make the Fulcrum parts are 4 parts, correct? So now you're getting think about the cards. This woman had a tattoo. Their little details are connecting and bringing force to the mind. So the 4 cards, she had a tattoo. The tattoo brings him. And did you even notice that even the haircut that Pete had before he shaved the locks is exactly the one that Tom was wearing when he shaved for the German job? The very long hair on the sides. Exactly the same.
I'll have to go back and look at that. I'll have to go back and look at that. I may do a parallel scene for that because I really liked that. I saw it and went, look what we have.
Yeah, and then we have like this, and even the expression in his face is like he's preparing for another job. He's done with that job. Now he's going for the second job.
He had left his fiancée behind. I did like the whole scene with the fiancée. I can never remember her name, but where he's sitting there, where Tom's sitting there on the bench, tell me everything you know about Pete. It was very reminiscent. Huh?
I think her name is Jennifer. So
was
you're getting. I think there was a Jennifer in the show.
I don't remember what her name was. But I found it very interesting that, the tell me everything you know about Pete. It's just all these little things that you're not 100% sure why they went that direction, but I think it's all going to come together by the winter finale. You're going to see a lot of things come together.
Well, I think that what now is obvious is that when I went back and looked at all the scenes that I said had zero anything. Remember when Nick is introducing Liz, introducing Tom and Pete?
Yes. Oh, when they were talking over each other, and
when
he
they
said,
were talking
"Shut up,
over
both of you."
Other.
Yeah, it was very similar the way they were going at each other, and I think we made a comment at the time.
And remember the conversation that Liz has with the guy in the harem that gives her the entry and said we're gonna rehearse this until we're convinced it's true. So, and you know that when Nick calls from the car and says, "Well, I've been thinking about what you said, and I think, if Liz is in trouble, I don't think Nick got involved. I was wrong in assuming that it's because he can't say no. I think he could say no very well, but somebody was in that car, and somebody made him go back and get this done." And then he was killed, not because he was at the wrong time at the wrong place. He was killed because he was a loose end. I don't
I
think it
do
has
think he was
anything.
killed because he was a loose end, yes.
It was a loose end,
But
yeah.
I don't know if there was anybody in the back of the car. Maybe. The shot would blend to it, best I remember, but I don't know
But
for sure.
when Pete, the girlfriend said something interesting that Pete has been missing for 10 days. So basically, since he got that suitcase, he disappeared from sight. So he was there positioned only to have a place to run these things, to have a cover. That job was a cover. In fact, his ID was done about in October. So he got that ID. He got into that relationship just to have a cover, or probably got into that relationship. Then that relationship got into the cover, and then as soon as he gets the suitcase, he's done with the job. He leaves. So and something very interesting happened in that conversation. We had Tom. What he first says about Tom, you're a cop. So this, to me, by now, I'm starting to see all these little things. Remember in the first episode, Tom is the one that flashes the badge. Now we're getting in this episode. Jen is like, no, 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 no.
This is not my theory. This is not my theory. This is all Tessa right here.
Yeah. Well, I tell you what, I think that, and I can give you a proof that Tom is working undercover for the CIA, for intelligence, for someone in the government. I tell you what his mission is. I think his mission is to protect Remington. I know that it's gonna sound crazy. You're gonna say, "Oh, you're crazy." Yeah, I know. She's like, you have to see her face. I wish you could, guys.
I've got a face that Tessa knows by this point. It's the face.
I don't believe that. Well, I can give you. It's very clear when we get, the other thing, and the funny thing is here, because that's not enough to give us that little detail in case we need a hammer. That was a hammer. Now they're giving us the mallet. The mallet is that they're bringing back Mira. Out of all characters, they're bringing up Mira. People, the confusion, the smoke and mirrors is, oh, Tom caused Mira's death, and now he caused Nick's death. But I think that Tom didn't cause Nick's death. Nick was killed because he was a loose end from Pete or whoever got him to go and tell Tom that he could help him in order to get that suitcase out of Tom's hands. And secondly, then you get Mira now. And Mira, when Fitch tells Red that the task force is a target, there's only two people that know that. Berlin, fake Berlin, Kinski, and Tom. Nobody has known the name of fake Berlin. Nobody has any idea what he's doing. He has just asked for the list. Tom gives him the list, and the next thing you know is Fitch is telling Red, that the task force is a target. And the first thing, he takes it so seriously that the first thing he does, even before cleaning the blood on his face, is to call Liz and tell her to pull everybody back. And there is only one person other than fake Berlin that knew that at that time, Tom. So Tom had to have told Fitch that was the case. That was his attempt to save the task force.
I don't know. I mean,
Just
I've never.
I said it.
Yeah, I will. And you know me. If it comes out, I will be the first person to give you your pat on the back.
So that is my thing. But there is like this two is like, are you a fake name? And the other one is like, why did you even go to medical school? And we don't need to do that. And I don't even know you. And it just, to me now, you look back with that mirror, it's like, oh yeah, this is two undercover agents again. They bring back Mira. And what was Mira? Mira spent her entire working life as a clandestine undercover agent. She was actually serving under Peter. She was a trained interrogator and a clandestine CIA agent. So you have again two undercover agents interrogating each other, and they don't even know that the other one is one. So it's a very interesting way the parallels have done. I'm like in awe of this episode.
Oh, I think it was brilliant. I'm very much a fan of this one. So the only other thing that I have really on my list of things to go over would be the fact that Tom that he was actually willing to have that stuff pumped into his veins to get the answers he needed. I'm sitting there watching this going, why are you not folding up that cord? Why are you allowing that into you? Because obviously he did. It's not that he, stopped the
I couldn't
the
even
IV.
walk.
Yeah, I mean, he was stumbling and having a lot of trouble getting to where he needed to go. And so the only thing that I can think of, the reason why he wouldn't do that, was that maybe an alarm was going to go off or something like that. It might have, since it was a test subject, maybe it would have set an alarm off if suddenly, the medication wasn't flowing correctly. But I'm just like, dude, come on. What kind of repercussions are you about to have on that?
I have a lot more, not only that, but he's able to focus. He can't even walk, and he's able to focus to find that little heart on the reflection of the glasses. And then there is this, it's very
good.
interesting because Red had been playing solitaire. There was another Red had been playing solitaire. You have the cards. Now you're getting the cards, the heart. There are three other brothers, so that's four. Is bringing four again into the forefront, four fulcrum parts. But then this is where I still got so many parallels that we haven't even gone into. Should I go into? I'm so excited about them.
If you would like to, yes.
Okay. This is the second false flag operation that we have seen. The first one is a Kerch bombing that was actually made by America, and it was, with some Russian involvement. We have a rogue, but look at this one. We have a rogue agent who's really the guy trying to stop something. He used to be a part of it. Does that sound like Red? And at the end, they accuse him of being the bad guy. And they use then the name of this terrorist to commit things that he didn't do. And then, but it's the task, is a task force that is actually doing this. So remember Red saying, to convince the world that I was a criminal, the world already thought I was?
Well, we also had that with Jonica and Mako Tanita. When Tanita's brother died, and Tanita was put into prison, Jonica took over and ran the business.
But so it was a business. But this is even more. This is you're talking about. I don't think that. Remember, they say they blame Red for the Kirk's bombing. Then they blame Red for killing Berlin's daughter. So I'm thinking, I wonder if when they thought Red was dead, they used Red as the bad guy. Because it was like a little bit like Surkov. He was like a little bit of a ghost. So they use him to do all these things in the name of somebody who's supposedly dead, except that he wasn't.
Be an interesting parallel to draw.
This is the second time that a card or a figure in a card like the heart has proven the key to an episode. Remember the Gold Crown Pharmaceuticals in the Longevity Initiative? That's how Liz figures out what the guy was trying to tell her. It was the Gold Crown pharmaceutical was the king.
That's right.
And we've seen Red playing cards. Um, so this is, look at this, a secretive organization who's arguably trying to keep things quiet, uses a dead person to conduct their business, and then one of the lead tried to stop them. That's Red with the Cabal. That is right there. I'm always thought that Red was part of the Cabal. He thought he was doing something good, and then he wasn't.
Oh, I agree with you there. I think that he was very much involved with the Cabal early
Yeah.
on.
And we got a lot of bombings, and like the Kursk one.
Mm-hmm.
Surkov is described as a ghost, like Red was, like Katerina was. Remember, Katerina's a ghost. We got Callum searching for Surkov for 6 years. Red wrestler looking for Redford, and she even says the same thing, just doing my job. And wrestler looks at her like, yeah, I was there, sister. That didn't turn out so good.
Gotta put a little bit of thought process into the job, honey.
Um, remember Callum talking about the white whale? Like, this is my white whale. So you're again getting white whale, Red
Ahab.
doing. Yep. And then you got Solomon, and Solomon retreats quoting Moby Dick, and Solomon was a CIA asset. So you're starting to even draw things from Redemption in here, and there's so many. I'm sure that the next time that I watch it, I'm gonna find 10 more. I'm liking all of these things. The disavowed. You remember in Redemption, the disavowed agent that then started kidnapping, but he said, I didn't do anything. They came to kill me, and they issue a burn notice for me. So I wonder if Red was undercover, and they issue a burn notice when he was still in the field and told him, I'm sorry. Now you're on your own.
That would be interesting.
So that he wasn't really lost those 4 years. He was supposed to be doing undercover. The rest of the world was supposing thinking that he disappeared. Meanwhile, he was undercover doing something, and then they started doing things in his name, then blaming for all those things, and then disavowed him.
I like that. That's interesting.
That's what I thought it happened. I think I have a few of my very, very old posts about it, that thinking that's why he says your country. That's what he cannot be a part, because they disavowed him and cut him off in the middle of something. After his cover was supposed to be a criminal, he became a criminal, then disavowed him and left him with all these other things that they did in his name, that now he's supposed to be this horrendous criminal that he's not. He has to become one.
Everything about him is a lie.
And so I think that also, we're getting this thing with Mira, with Nick, and they're all reminders that what you're seeing with Tom, all that things, the bad things that he has done. I think that if I'm right, and Tom is really an undercover, and he may not be able to tell this, because some of this, you see it in the CIA, say if you're not capable of keeping a secret from your spouse, you cannot be in the clandestine service. These people are not allowed to tell anybody anything.
I still say that trying to connect him to the CIA does a disservice to his background.
I don't think it is CIA. I don't.
That's what you've been saying. You've been saying
No.
CIA.
He has worked for CIA. He has worked as an undercover for CIA, but I don't think his present mission, if such exists, is CIA.
Okay.
I think that all of this that we're seeing with Tom and the bad things, and Mira and Nick, and what a bad guy he is, that is such a clever misdirect. First, he wasn't. Nick came back to him and said, yeah, I want to help. So you cannot really say even that Tom got Nick killed. Nick got killed because Nick got involved.
When Nick said, I can't do this, the last time I, lied to Reddington, it nearly got me killed. Tom went, okay, and he let him go. You know, he's like, I'll find something else. And he let it go. And then Nick came back to him. No, Tom is not responsible for Nick's death. People are responsible for the decisions that they make, and Nick did decide to come back. I'm sure Tom feels terrible about it, you know, to an extent, but it's not his fault. It's not like Tom put a gun to his head or hired someone to kill him.
And I don't think he's responsible for Mira because, I mean, if you think about it, how can you find any other explanation than the one I gave you for the fact that Fitch knew before anybody, with only Tom and Kinski?
I honestly have not paid a lot of attention to Fitch in a long time, so I would have to go back and do serious research on that.
Well,
to have an opinion one way or the other.
There's only two people that knew. So there's only one answer to that. Tom let him know. But, I mean, think about it. Fitch could have told Cooper to pull everybody. He didn't. Those seconds is enough. And, like, look at another thing with that whole thing about the list and Tom, which I think is coming because they're bringing Mira back. And they're bringing Mira back for a reason. At that moment, I know that there was the list and he said to bring the ginger and take care of the other agent, but look at who was actually hurt. Mira was killed. Mira, who was a CIA agent taken out of retirement, supposedly by Diane Fowler, but she, as an undercover, have served under Peter Kotsiopoulos. And she is put in, that we didn't know at that time that Diane was Cabal, but she was put by the Cabal in there. And then they tried to make her a patsy by having her sign the thing so that Red will kill her. And then she had no problem in saying, no, it wasn't me, but I'll get you who it was. And she knew exactly what was gonna happen to Diane Fowler. But, you know, they set her up. Why would she act like that? So I think that is an interesting thing, is that don't look at Mira as, this is for Tom. Mira is also drawing attention to the fact that we're getting undercovers, and everything that you're looking at, nothing is as it seems.
It's misdirects.
Mm-hmm. And again, we have mentions of Belgrade. Remember, Ranko Samani was from Serbia. Luther Braxton, who had that thing in Belgrade. There's a lot of plaids. And I think that is, who do you think killed Nick? Do you think it was Pete?
I don't know yet. Because if he is missing fingers, then that means Pete went up against somebody else. I do not know.
And Nick was strangled, not Garrote wasn't used.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like
hands.
you know. Yeah, it's not like we saw Nick fighting back and had a knife and cut his fingers off or anything. I mean, there was no injury to the person doing the killing at the time. And so that means that Pete went up against somebody. Now, it could have been somebody attacked him first to get the suitcase. I mean, I don't know who killed Nick at this point.
I think there's another party at work here, because I could see Pete being the guy who beat up Dennison, but I'm not sure that because if he killed Nick, why would he leave with a suitcase and leave the body of Nick there?
Well, Nick's body was found in a ditch. It wasn't found
but
at Pete's.
The person who killed him just took the suitcase and left. The person who killed him didn't move the body.
That doesn't mean that he didn't come back for the body. I mean, he might have gotten rid of this.
It did not, but it's not, it did, that wasn't the it could be. Let me put it that way. So I'm so excited about this episode, because now I'm seeing where we're going, and it's just so good. This is actually the second confrontation they had with a CIA unit. The first one was in the skeleton case. And the other thing that was very interesting, that covert unit that we saw included a member of the FSS and Defense Intelligence. So this is actually looking a lot like those units that Cooper was talking about when he was in a joint mission with this and that. And so this seemed to have been a joint mission with the FSS. So I think that's all I have. It's
I'm waiting to see if there are any other parallels.
No, it's 18 parallels that I've counted. That's probably takes the pie for parallel.
That's intense. All right, so does that wrap us up?
I think so.
Okay.
What are you predicting is going to happen in the next episodes?
I don't have a prediction. I'm just kind of along for the ride right now. I'm enjoying them as they come. There's been so much drama in the fandom lately that I've stopped following a bunch of blogs. I've taken kind of a step back from a lot of the blogs that release a lot of things that like the preview stuff. And so a lot of it's just trying to enjoy my show. Take it as it comes.
Yeah, I'm super excited. I think I am like probably the person who's most excited that I've seen with this. And also because I was able to more or less have a very good idea what the number was going to be. So that might mean that I have cracked the numbering of the Blacklist, which I'm not going to talk about here. But that is because that's a whole can of worms that we can open. But yeah, that got me very excited. So, yeah, that's it.
That about wraps us up then. You can find us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and YouTube. And we love talking with you guys. We're on Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. Until next week. All right. Bye-bye.